hello again, and welcome back to Illegally Cited. This is Jesse, aka BGFH, and I'm back for another bonus video. There may be quite a few of these actually coming up here in the next week or so. But I wanted to do kind of a bonus video. I had a lot of different things I wanted to talk about, so let's just dive right in. First off, good news for the channel. Not only did we hit 1,600 subscribers, but we surpassed it. We're well on our way here. 1,609 as you see up there. So again, thank you to all the new subscribers and all the new viewers of the channel. I hope that you find something here interesting or entertaining or both. Everything is divided into playlists, so you can easily find something you're interested in, be it mainstream or accessible games or VR or assistive technology stuff, iOS, whatever. There's a lot here. But again, thank you to all the people that have stuck around. I never really thought it would keep growing like this, but hey, cool, and thank you. So yeah, channel, and there's a lot going on the channel. A lot of different things have happened recently. I've been doing quite a few mixer streams, a little VR content. A couple of my most recent videos there. We got an Oculus Quest review. Yes, I've started to play with the standalone headset, and spoiler alert, if you want to get into VR, and you want kind of an easy way to do it, you might want to watch that video, and you may want to actually consider picking one of those up, because I think the Quest is definitely one of the, I think it's one of the best, best ways to get started into virtual reality. We just took a look at Windows 10, the May 2019 update, with some great accessibility improvements to narrator and the mouse pointers and magnifier and all that stuff. So again, kudos to Microsoft for getting it done. They're just improving the accessibility of Windows and Xbox and all this stuff. They're just doing a great job with that, and I'm really curious to see where they go this fall and beyond. So yeah, definitely check those videos out amongst the other ones. A lot of game videos and stuff. And of course, E3 is going to be coming up this weekend as I'm recording this, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit at the end of today's video, but I want to touch on a few other things. One last minute addendum. So I got home from work today, and I just watched what is supposedly supposed to be, unfortunately, the final season of Black Mirror on Netflix. If you guys have not watched Black Mirror and you're into technology, maybe kind of the more messed up side of technology, that can be, some of the episodes can be scarily real or plausible, you want to watch Black Mirror, because there's some episodes that are kind of way out there, but then there's stuff that just really, some of them are really spot on, and some of them, like, given a little bit more technology advancements, I could see kind of some of these things happening, and boy howdy, what is it, season 5 that just came out today. I said I got home and I watched it just to chill out from work after work, and boy, only 3 episodes to wrap things up, but all 3 of them. The first one was on virtual reality, and it took some turns, man. That's all I'm gonna say. Not where I expected that would go, but But the second episode, I forget what the episode was called, but that was the one that really, actually, well, I liked all of them, but the second episode was really interesting and pretty brutal, and it really touches on social media and how people just can't stay away, how people can't just stop looking at their phones for 2 seconds. Even when it can, endanger somebody's life. Yeah, it was just a really, really interesting episode. And what I thought was going to be not quite very interesting turned out to be pretty good, actually, this pop star episode, the final one. All I'm going to say is, again, all these episodes, they take a turn. Again, Black Mirror is kind of this, the dark side of technology. And it was an entertaining ride. And with as good as these episodes are, I really hate to see the series stop. I really wish that Netflix would not stop the series, because I was most of the seasons, and there were a couple duds, but most of the episodes throughout the series have been really good, and pretty entertaining. So check that out if you want. If you want something interesting, kind of the dark and twisted side of technology. Another thing that I was going to cover, I wanted to touch on, is this crazy little handheld console that was announced a few weeks ago. They call it the Playdate, and go look up like Playdate handheld, and it's crazy that somebody would actually even come up with something like this. There's like these teenage engineers who have created this what is it, like yellow or orange? Well, heck, let me just do a new tab here. Images.google.com. I'll say Playdate console. Check those images out, man. So you got this orangish handheld, like Game Boy looking thing. Almost looks like a Game Boy Pocket, the way the bottom stuff is kind of scrunched there. But what makes this thing really interesting is it's this lo-fi, non-backlit handheld that has a D-pad, 2 buttons, and the reason everyone is talking about this, and the reason I'm just morbidly curious about this, the right side of this thing has a crank. What other gaming console have you heard of that has a crank? I could see it as a fishing reel for like a fishing game, but okay, you got me curious. I guess apparently it's funded through some sort of, I forget if it's Kickstarter but it's crowdfunded. You can pay $150 to try to reserve one of these things. And I think $150 is a little bit too high for what it is. If it was under $100, I would probably do it just for the novelty of going, what is this weird thing? And so the other unique aspect of it is that the games are actually, they're only doing 12 games to start with for the thing. And they're releasing them like the first season is this 12 games, and they're from I forget all the developers, that they've said a few already, but I think one of the developers was like from the makers of Katamari Damacy and a couple other ones, but so they're kind of noteworthy developers making these games, but they're apparently going to be releasing one game a week until they hit the 12 games. And then beyond that, I don't know if they're going to do like a season 2, or how many people are going to catch on to this thing, or how many they're even going to make. But everything about this Playdate console just is sort of fascinating. I'm definitely going to keep an eye on it just as a curiosity sake. I wish it was a little bit cheaper. I could afford to get one, but I don't know. Especially being low vision, having a small, non-backlit, black and white screen, by the way. Black and white. This is not a color operation. This is basically old school Game Boy lo-fi. But I'm curious, I don't know how well I'd be able to see it, but the device itself does intrigue me. Come on, it's got a crank on it. What the heck? That's just weird. I had to show you guys that. So the main couple reasons I wanted to do this video was I wanted to talk a little bit about WWDC. I should also mention before that, by the way, apparently, as of last Sunday, I co-host a podcast now. If you go to Anchor or some of the other podcast service sites, as it gets approved more places. But starting out in Anchor, the A4G podcast. Accessibility for Gamers podcast. You've probably, if you've tuned into some of my Mixer streams or follow me on Twitter at BGFH79, you've probably seen a lot of Riley Rose Frazie's tweets, and she started this podcast and was looking for a co-host, and since she's kind of been following me for a while, both on YouTube and Mixer, I thought, yeah, you know what, return the favor. I've always sort of wanted to do a podcast myself, but didn't want to just talk into thin air by myself on another medium. So I thought, hey, let's give it a shot. And the podcast already has some guests coming on, or has already had a guest and should have some throughout the month. So again, go check out the the A4G podcast. And check that out. I will be on there again on Sunday, and we're going to talk about some WWDC there. But, I wanted to also kind of talk about it really quick here and just kind of run through a few things that I thought, kind of what I thought about the announcements and everything. And then I want to talk a little bit about some of the E3 stuff and some of my plans for this weekend, and then we'll wrap it up. So, again, a lot to cover for this video, so we're just going to keep cranking through here. So, the keynote was a little long. Some of it was kind of meh, but there was actually a fair bit of announcements. And even after the keynote, there's things that we learned that weren't announced during the keynote. But they started with this weird kind of, some kind of song about sleep, and at first I thought it was like, oh, are they going to finally announce sleep tracking for the Apple Watch? But then I think it was actually more geared toward dark mode for iOS, which, huzzah, finally. How long have I been wanting? Well, I've been wanting dark mode ever since iOS 7 blinded all of us with its incessant bright white backgrounds. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to dark mode in iOS 13. But we'll get there. So they started with that weird little song. They got into things like the Apple TV, which really, honestly, I don't have the 4K one because I don't have a 4K TV, so I don't really care. But they're going to have multiple user support, basically a new design. They try to promote their exclusive videos. I mean, the trailer that they did for their science fiction series actually looked okay. But I don't think they're going to have enough, at least in the beginning, for me to really want to subscribe. Maybe if they have a free trial, I can try to binge that series if it's any good. But like I said, we're already subscribing to so many things already. And Apple really hasn't proven to me that, they're going to have tons of exclusive. Okay, they might have one that seems, fairly interesting, but look at Netflix and Amazon and Disney and Hulu. And the Disney thing this fall is looking pretty good with all of its Marvel and Star Wars. And I think they said they were having actually all the Simpsons stuff in there. So, for $6, what is it, $6 a month or something? That's looking pretty dang compelling. The Apple service, I just don't know. One thing I forgot to write down on my little list here, so I'm going to mention it now so I don't forget. They did announce this kind of sign in with Apple feature. You know how on websites you have a sign in with Facebook or Google or whatever social media thing. Apple's doing their own thing, and they're really trying to gear toward privacy. And so basically it's, you sign up with them, and they will actually, if you want to, you can use kind of these burner email addresses so that they don't get your actual email address. They'll generate an email address on a per app basis. So it's not just like, oh, I have one kind of this burner address from my Apple ID. It's on a per app basis. And I don't know. It could be, Apple claims that they say that they're not going to record any of your information, but, who are we to trust? All these big companies. Google and Amazon and Apple pretty much know everything about us anyways, but, at least we have to try to, think security a little bit. But, their sign-in with Apple did actually sound at least a little bit compelling. if they implement it correctly, because, if they are going to have these, just make it easy for you to have these like burner email addresses. And so if you don't want to furnish a site with a real email address, you can still get around that if you sign in via that upcoming service. Apple Watch, actually, with watchOS, what is it, 6 now, coming out this fall, I think it might actually be a little bit more compelling. Couple things, they're really starting to actually break away from the phone a little bit. It seems like you're not going to have to do as much with the phone that you can if you want to, but I think you can do a lot more stuff on the watch. For one, it's going to have its own app store in which you can download apps directly to it. That's pretty cool. And here's the one that kind of got me, especially if you have an LTE watch. They're releasing a thing for developers, not just Apple apps now. So if a developer wants to, apparently they can use some sort of audio streaming API so that they can have things like, I could go out without my phone, and if I had a Bluetooth headset paired with my watch, I could theoretically stream audio from an app, let's say Overcast or Pandora or YouTube Music, because Google Music is probably going away shortly, pretty soon. But things like that, like if I'm not using Apple Music and I want to stream, I'm sure people are clamoring for Spotify. But the point is, just being able to do that on the watch without being coupled to your phone, because I've seen a couple of these apps so far, that I don't even know if they still exist, but for a while, like they had a Pandora app, and all it basically was a little remote to control the app on your phone. I'm like, well, that's sure, I guess, but not what I was looking for. So that has some potential. And then, of course, their new watch faces, which, I don't know. I don't know that I care about that all that much, but some people will. But the watch, I don't know. I mean, and they're adding some extra health tracking stuff as usual. They're kind of ramping up that, so not too bad there. Let's see. Uh-oh. I totally did not mean to do that. I was looking at my list, and I think I almost deleted a message. My bad. So then we move on to iOS, which is, of course, where I was the most interested to see what they would do. And, of course, they did confirm dark mode. So, dark mode, yay. We're going to have that. It was pretty certain this year. There was a lot of leaks about it. And from what little of the screenshots that I saw, I'm thinking I'm going to put the public beta when it comes out in July on my iPad Pro, kind of like I did last year, and to take a look at it, because I'm very curious to see how dark mode looks and works. And then we found out after the keynote, there's supposed to be theoretically like voiceover app preferences. So like you can actually customize things on a per app basis. Like maybe you want to have the speech in one app faster or slower, or other types of things like that. That'll be potentially useful. Then they're also it's still iOS, but they're still kind of calling it something different. The iPad, they call it iPadOS as of iOS 13. So they're trying to differentiate it even more from the iPhone a little bit. They're adding some multitasking gestures, some new kind of typing and swipe gestures, which I'm not sure how is going to work with VoiceOver, but it'll be fun to try. See how that works. Like your cut, copy, and paste. A bit more multitasking things. One of the multitasking things that I think could be useful is not only can you have two apps open at the same time, but finally, you can actually have two of the same type of document open. So if I have 2 pages documents side by side, or 2 Word documents, or 2 notes or something, and then I can just kind of pop back and forth between them, or even I guess you can do even 2 email messages. So I'm composing one email, and then I forget I got to go back and look at another message to get some information, I guess I'm theoretically going to be able to do that. That might actually make, because admittedly I don't use multitasking that much on an iPad just because, I mean, yeah, it works, but it's just not as fluent. It's just not as, especially if you're using VoiceOver, to me it's just like, I can just use my four-finger flick and kind of almost like Alt-Tab that way, which generally works pretty well. So I don't do a split view a lot. But that could be potentially interesting to try. Yeah, and then both on the Mac and iOS, they kind of talked about it. Sidecar. So with the Mac, you'll be able to use your iPad as a secondary monitor. I know you've been able to do that with third-party apps, but now Apple's officially doing it. And you can also use your Apple Pencil. So if you want to use like a Mac app that's trying to, that's basically you're trying to be more precise or something. If you're using, let's say, Photoshop or Illustrator or something like that, you probably use your pencil on the iPad to do some of the fine detail work. So, that could be interesting. What do we got? Voice control. They actually had a section toward the end there on accessibility. And the main thing that they covered both on the Mac and iOS, and I'm curious to see, again, they do these whiz-bang demos on the stage, but how well are they going to work in reality? But they seem to really be beefing up, just like how VoiceOver, you can navigate the whole system if you're blind. And, yeah, we've had Siri, which is kind of dumb, but can be useful in some cases. Well, now they're adding voice control and better dictation for both Mac and iOS. So theoretically, you're supposed to, it almost basically seems like a full-fledged Dragon Naturally Speaking sort of a thing for Mac and iOS. So like you can kind of jump between, and it's supposed to understand, when am I dictating and when am I issuing a command? So, you can open and switch apps or, say, hey, select this or change this or click on this, tap this link, or, they did this kind of video demo on the stage. And so that's something that could be, and again, especially if somebody has multiple disabilities, I work with, at work, I work with, blind and visually impaired, but I also work with people who have multiple disabilities, some of which who could really benefit from more solid voice control. So that will be interesting to kind of check out later, that voice commands and voice control. Okay, so there's a little bit of unclearness, a little bit of things I'm unclear on here, but the Files app, remember how I'm like, okay, I just kind of dismissed it before because, yeah, you can use your cloud services and things, but the Files app to me just really didn't behave kind of the way I would expect a Files app to behave. To wit, you couldn't plug in a thumb drive or a hard drive, removable media, and just, be able to copy things back and forth. But I guess with iOS 13 or iPad, I don't know if it's specifically iPadOS or if some of this is also going to come to the phone, but on the iPad at the very least, the Files app is supposed to now support removable media like thumb drives. I have a funny feeling that's not going to extend to, like, if I plugged it into my PC, will the Files app area of my tablet show up as a removable drive so I can just copy and paste using Windows Explorer, which is what I would really, really want. I still really doubt it's going to go that far. Like, I don't want to get too hyped up about it, or it's something so simple that they, like I said, that was one of my first iOS complaints when I got my original iPad and iPhone back in the day. And I've gotten around it for the most part, but part of me, like, especially if I want to copy a lot of files or a big file or something, I just don't want to mess with cloud services. Like, put it up in the cloud, then sync it over here. Just let me plug it into my computer and copy the damn thing. Because iTunes, especially on this PC, bad. And we'll get to iTunes as well later. Yeah. So file transfer, that's going to be interesting to play with the Files app and see how that works. Safari, at the very least on the iPad anyway, is supposed to have a download manager, of all things. So maybe you download things into the Files app area. That could be interesting, which would actually be really helpful. There's been times where, like if I've done like the Humble Book Bundle or something like that, and I just want to download a whole bunch of things, or something like that, or you're in a class and you need to download materials and just dump them into the Files app and then just shoot them into, whatever app you want to use, if you're going to edit them with Pages or Word, or dump them into Voice Dream or something like that. I don't know. That could be interesting. Okay, I already covered that, the multiple documents thing. One thing that they sort of mentioned, but not too much, there's supposed to be a feature that silences unknown calls. So it's kind of like this telemarketer spam, this robocall blocking feature. Or basically what I think it'll do is it's supposed to send the call basically directly to voicemail, and if it's important enough they can leave a message. And I think you can even have it where, if it's an unknown number, it won't even ring you, it won't even give you a notification unless you want it to. So like not so much on my personal phone, but my work phone, oh dear God. That'll be a godsend, because I can't tell you how much, ironically, on my work cell, how many robocalls I get. I don't even answer the thing. I'm like, this phone is for me to call out. Don't call me here, because I'm not going to answer it. There's more to iOS. There's been other people doing like every lowdown, every breakdown. If you want to check those out, definitely. But those are some of the things that stood out to me about iOS. I really do want to play with the dark mode. I really do want to play with the dictation and the voice control stuff. That seems kind of interesting. So Mac OS Catalina, apparently. First off, they are getting rid of the combined iTunes thing. So I love how even they made fun of themselves. They're like, yeah, we know, it's bloated. It started out as a music thing, then it went to movies, then it went to this, and then it went to that. And then they just went further, like, but we think we could do it better. What if we made a calendar? And then what if we put a dock in there, and then a mail thing? And it was kind of funny, but I mean, even they know that, like, dude, iTunes sucks. So now they're basically putting it into the music, podcasts, and TV apps, which are already there, but they're basically just kind of putting all the functionality into those 3 separate apps. Unfortunately, PCs, it looks like we have to deal with the iTunes plague for a little while longer, at the very least, because we're not getting, we're still going to have to use iTunes if you want to do any syncing with the PC. And then on the Mac, the file transfer stuff or the synchronization, that's just going to happen in a Finder, in like a Finder area, like a Finder window or something like that. So, that actually kind of makes sense. Make your specialized apps that aren't so bloated, that can handle one task specifically pretty well. Makes sense to me. Then they talked about Sidecar again. Twitter app coming to iPad, because I forget the name of I forget what they're calling it, but basically they are, as we expected, they're trying to make it easy for iOS apps to be ported to the Mac, or basically you make it so that they're trying to make it so that you can make one app, you can develop one app, and then you can launch it on iPhone, iPad, and the Mac. So maybe we'll see a Voice Dream Reader app from Mac down the line. Maybe we'll see some other stuff. But yeah, so they made a big deal. They like, oh, Twitter's coming back, because people were upset that there's no real Mac Twitter app, apparently, or the official Twitter app anyway. So yeah, iPad and iOS apps coming to the Mac. And, that could be also for some of the accessible games and stuff like that, too. So some of the stuff that starts out on iOS, theoretically, that can be also available, if updated, to work on the Mac as well. Yeah, iTunes is going away. I talked about that. Yeah, they're combining the Find My Friends and Find My Phone into the Find My app. It's called Find My, which is, I guess it's sort of descriptive, but just sounds kind of dumb. Like, find my what? Find my stuff. Call it Find My Stuff. I don't know. But, they're combining that, and then they're doing some sort of tracking with, there's some sort of low power, I forget if it's like Bluetooth or something, where it's going to make it so even if your computer is, locked and everything, and you lose it, it'll be able to be tracked a little bit easier. Just go watch that part of the video if you want to learn more specifics about that, or some other, I don't remember the specifics, but that sounded good because it's kind of more, again, kind of catching up to what they've been doing for iOS devices for a little while for the Mac. Then we get to the Mac Pro. Good Lord, man. I mean, if you are a professional and, you're doing like hardcore video editing and stuff like that, okay. But, so the Mac Pro, remember a couple years ago, well, actually several years ago now, they released the trash can. The Mac Pro that was like this little, really small, actually. I did see one at work one time, because somebody got one ordered, somebody ordered one for somebody. And, yeah, it looked like a little trash can. I mean, it was not expandable. I've heard that there were overheating issues with it. But prior to that, they had this giant silver tower, and they kind of called it the cheese grater. And they went back to the cheese grater design because, yes, it's going to cost you a lot of cheddar, as they say on Twitter. I saw that tweet and laughed. But, yeah, this Mac Pro is pretty ridiculous. Don't worry, you're not going to want to buy one. Starting price is $6,000, and I was reading this morning actually that even with that $6,000 starting price, mind you, you only get a 256 gigabyte SSD drive. Really? Come on, man! You can get like much higher SSD drives for actually pretty cheap now. And Apple, that's just their price. That's just the way they are. Charge out the ass as much as you can possibly get away with. But, I mean, like I said, if you're doing if you're in a professional setting and you're doing hardcore, like, video editing and audio stuff and just, going back and forth doing, like, hardcore processing and video things, they went on about how you could add, I don't even, like, terabytes of RAM and 4 GPUs and just all kinds of crazy stuff for real media, high-end media editing. So yeah, I mean, by the time you max that thing out, it's probably going to be like $40,000. You're starting prices at $6,000. By the time you max the thing out, you're not going to want to pay it. So that's the Mac Pro. Then they talked about the monitor to go with said Mac Pro. It's supposed to be the 6K monitor. There's two different iterations, one that's got some extra matte finish or something. So basically between $4,000 and $5,000, a little over $5,000. Here's the catch though, and here's where I think here's where Apple really needs to get knocked upside the head a little bit, because those are the monitors that are $4,000 or $5,000. However, the monitors do not come with the stand. No. It has its own special, I don't even know what I want to call it, but yes, it has its own stand. Anyone want to guess how much the damn stand costs? $1,000. $1,000 for a freaking monitor stand. Yes, you can buy the monitor stand, and that does not come with the monitor for $1,000. Good Lord. I mean, if I'm spending that much for a monitor, it damn well better come with a mount or a stand or something, because, oh my Lord, that's just, I mean, again, I understand you're going for the hardcore, like, you're going to get, Hollywood, or you're going to get, like, people that just have tons of money to throw away. But, there's still, I mean, there's being practical, and then there's just being greedy. And some of that stuff, I think, the hardware itself, yeah, it sounds good. If you need it for that kind of thing. I mean, this is not a consumer grade machine. It's not going to be meant for gaming. It's not going to be meant for, like, if you're a regular consumer Joe, you're not going to really need the Mac Pro. But for what it is, the hardware is fine. But in some areas, boy howdy, like I said, I think, they're doing the Apple thing. They're charging, again, as much as they think they can get away with. The sad part is, I know people are going to buy it. $1,000 for a monitor stand. Good God. That's largely the Apple event, and then I know there's things that I missed, but those are some of the highlights that I could remember that I thought were pretty interesting. I mean, all told, a lot of it we already kind of knew. But they did kind of surprise us a little bit. I didn't mention that they did announce for iOS and Apple TV, Xbox One and PlayStation 4 controllers will be compatible with the new versions of TV OS and iOS and iPad OS this fall. So, we've got all of our controllers for our consoles already. Yeah, apparently we're going to be able to use those. And they said the word Apple Arcade, but we didn't really hear anything else about it. So I don't know when it's coming out, what games it's going to be, how much is it going to cost. Still don't know anything about that. But, I mean, at least if they're going to be pairing it with, controllers that everybody has, they probably just said, why are we going to develop our own controller? There's industry standard controllers already. We may as well just, they're Bluetooth, for God's sake. Just make them work. So I guess we'll find out about that later. But, overall, especially if you're really into the Mac and, you're really going to want a professional thing, okay. But overall, I thought it was pretty solid. Like I said, the dark mode, the dictation, the voice control stuff. There's some other accessibility things that may be in the accessibility. I also heard a rumor. I can't confirm it yet, but I also heard that they're actually putting accessibility in the main area of the settings app. Like, you have to go to general and then accessibility. I think they're actually moving it up, from what I heard, into just the regular, the main settings menu, which is kind of an interesting thing, because that's saying, hey, we want to draw your attention to some of these features that people just may overlook or dismiss. So, I don't know, that's kind of cool. So that's Apple. Now, on to E3. So, yeah. Google Stadia has their little event tomorrow. What is it, tomorrow morning? I'm going to be at work. I don't know if it's around lunchtime, so I might be able to catch it, watch it on my phone or something, but I'm sure I'll check it out at least at some point tomorrow, just to see what it is they're going to do. We got EA's doing some stuff on Saturday, which I don't know how much of that I'm really going to watch, because a lot of the EA stuff, not super interested in. The main one that I will probably check out is if I find out what time they're going to announce, or they're going to show some footage of this new Star Wars game. I forget what it's called, but it's supposed to be this pretty interesting Star Wars game. I know it's not like Battlefront or anything like that. It's supposed to be a nice single-player, story-based Star Wars game, and I can't remember the name of it. I just forgot. But that I do want to see, so I'll check that out. Sunday is where things are really going to pick up, because I think what I'm going to do this year, for the past few years, I've watched the conferences, and then I've tried to do 2 or 3 videos saying, oh, here's what I thought about Microsoft, here's what I thought about Nintendo or Sony or Ubisoft or something. I think now that I have OBS working, and I should theoretically be able to stream a full screen browser window, I think we may just do kind of a, I may just fire up the old Mixer stream, and we'll watch some press conferences. So we have, on Sunday, we have Bethesda. Actually, we have Microsoft, then Bethesda. And the PC gaming show might actually, I forget if that's Sunday or Monday morning. I actually have it written down. But for sure, Microsoft and Bethesda, both of which I'm really interested in just to see what Microsoft does. I talked a little bit about in a previous video about Microsoft doing some patent with some sort of Braille type controller, with like a Braille display or Braille key, like Braille entry keys on the bottom or something like that. And I wouldn't, like I said, I can't guarantee that they're going to make it, but but the patent sounded interesting. And with what they did and the recognition and all the people that they helped with the adaptive controller last year, it honestly wouldn't surprise me. It honestly wouldn't surprise me if they tried something like that. And I'm available for testing. I'm available for testing and consulting. Hint, hint. So, I don't know, maybe that would be a cool thing they could announce. And I'm sure there'll be all kinds of games. Like, remember last year, they announced all those studio acquisitions. So, we'll maybe start hearing about, maybe they're not coming out all this year, but they'll start talking about some of the games that they're making. So we'll see. Microsoft and then Bethesda. Hopefully we get to learn about Doom Eternal. I would love a release date for that, and I'd love it to be this year. I'm sure they'll have stuff on Wolfenstein. Maybe they'll have stuff on, Starfield? I think they're next. Star something. I think it's Starfield. The game that they teased last year. And I'm sure they're going to have to at least somehow address some stuff with the Elder Scrolls Blades, because like the core of it's there. Like for a mobile game and the combat and everything, it's okay. You can do spells, you can do sword stuff. That stuff is okay, but the inherent timer and resources based everything. I remember Todd Howard came out last year and he's like, this is going to be a real. The core of this game is a true Elder Scrolls game in spirit. It may look like one on the surface if you're just looking at it, but the moment you start playing it, I need to grind for resources. I need to wait for timers. I need to spend real money so that I have enough resources to get wood or to get timers down, or everything that you do is either time or either that or you have to invest real money. And I understand it's a free to play to start with, but we've been through this how many times, so I'm not gonna reiterate it here, but it's just sad when people are still playing the Elder Scrolls games, or still playing Fallout 3, Fallout 4. We play those games because when we bought them, and there was a game in there, and we could play it for hours and hours on end, and we feel like we got a whole experience. Now, it's like you're asking us for money for things that are just either not finished or you're just going to keep milking us, and I just... the government's going to get involved because the gaming industry is not policing and controlling itself. So either way, it's going to end badly, and it could end badly for the gamers, but for the companies, if they, I don't want to see people laid off and things like that, but I'm going to kind of have to laugh, when all this constant monetization crap blows up in their face. I kind of wait for the day, because you've pushed it and pushed it and pushed it so far that we're at breaking point here pretty soon. Well, I think we've long passed it, but finally people are actually going to get involved and say, hey, enough is enough. So we'll see. But I'm sure, like I said, I'm curious to see what else Bethesda has. Monday, you got Ubisoft, you've got Square Enix. No E3 no Sony at E3 this year. They're supposed to have some sort of other, I don't know if they'll have a streaming event sometime. I haven't seen anything about that, but I'm sure there'll be announcements. So there'll be a couple things on Monday. And then Tuesday will be the Nintendo Direct. Now, if I looked at things correctly, the Nintendo Direct, I'm not going to be able to watch live. I'm going to have to watch the archive probably shortly after. And, maybe I'll still do a stream of it once it goes up on YouTube, because they're usually their Nintendo Directs come out almost right away after the video or after the stream. But I happen to have one of my Microsoft meetings that happens to take place at the exact same time as the Nintendo Direct. And I do really want to go to this Microsoft meeting because it's my Microsoft Low Vision advisory board meeting. So definitely got to go to that. But so we'll get to the Nintendo thing on Tuesday at some point. And like I said, I'm going to try to stream them. If it works, we'll do it. If not, I'll think of something else on the fly. I'll just have to record some bonus videos for you guys at some point over the weekend. And again, on Sunday, probably before all the shenanigans truly get started, I'm going to be recording the podcast, another podcast for the A4G podcast on Sunday at some point. And then I was also invited back on the Blind Bargains cast, so I'm going to be probably doing that Tuesday or Wednesday this week, maybe. Do kind of a post E3, maybe talk a little bit about GA-Conf since we hadn't gotten to do that yet. Invited back on there, so you should probably see that coming out in the next week or two. So yeah, I mean, I've got kind of a long weekend. I've taken a couple of days off work, and just because I want to get a lot of other things done in addition to E3. I mean, but it's going to be a lot of fun, but it's going to be a busy weekend for me. I got some other videos I want to record. There's some other beta tests that I need to look into. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun, but it's actually going to be a pretty long and busy weekend with E3 and all this videos and podcasting. Don't know if I'm going to do a game stream. I will on Friday or Saturday at some point. But again, with all the E3 stuff, I don't know. I mean, if I don't, not a big deal, because there's going to be a lot of streams if they work as it is. As for archiving them on YouTube, that's where I'm not sure, because I know other people do it. I mean, I'm not monetizing my channel. I don't want to get a copyright. We're going to be talking over it. I'm going to give my thoughts as we go here for these conferences if I stream and watch them with you guys. But if they do record, I don't know if I'm going to be able to archive them or not. So I'm kind of hoping to, but we'll play it by ear and we'll see how things go. So that's the tentative plan. Stream some stuff. Definitely follow me on Mixer, mixer.com/BGFH, and then you'll know when I go live. If you follow me on Twitter at BGFH79, again, I've tweeted a couple things where people have announced, they've kind of laid out the press conference schedules. What I'm probably going to do is I'm going to, start a little bit ahead of time just to make sure that the stream works. And then, I can talk for a couple minutes about, hey, okay, we got the Microsoft event here. What kind of things do I think we're going to see? And maybe make a couple of predictions, or, just see if anyone pops into the chat. And we're just going to watch a bunch of E3 coverage over the next few days. If you're into gaming, this is the kind of the big time of the year. Although after this year, who knows what is going to happen with companies sort of pulling out of it right now. I mean, with new consoles potentially right around the corner next year or so. Maybe it'll blow up again next year, or maybe E3's got to change. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, I'm looking forward to it. Curious to see what's going to happen. Did I miss anything else? I think, like I said, I knew this was going to be a busy video. Lots to talk about. But, again, thank you to everybody who has stuck around. Thank you to the new subscribers. Can't believe we actually hit 1,600 and climbing. Thank you for that. And I think we'll just, if I did forget anything, oh well. I'll be back soon enough. Again, follow me on Twitter at BGFH79 or mixer.com/BGFH or illegally-cited.com. And while you're at it, maybe check out the A4G Accessible for Gaming podcast on the anchors and such. So until next time, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will chat with you guys again later.